So hello everybody and welcome to my first guest on our Ask the Committee campaign that we are running as Sutton Coldfield Chamber. We have Gary Phelps with us of Gary Phelps Communications. Hello Gary, how are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
Yes, not bad at all, Gary, thank you. For those of you who aren't aware, my name's Chris Brewerton. I head up the chamber in Sutton Coldfield. Gary works on our executive committee as well as covering lots of areas across Sutton Coldfield and beyond, which we'll come on in a moment. And the part of this campaign really is to create some video content for our members to be able to hear some tips from key sort of knowledge providers across our membership. And today, Gary is going to be talking about PR. Gary was a journalist for 30 years. I think we've settled on Gary is about right.
Yeah.
And covering as editor of local titles, including the Royal Sutton Coldfield Observer, Tamworth Herald, and many others. Many others, including the Lichfield Mercury. Gary now works with varied clients, including the West Midlands Mayor Andy Street, local education partnerships covering Sutton Coldfield, such as Arthur Terry, and local Sutton businesses such as Power Minerals, based in the town centre. So, Gary, it's great to have you here with us today. Really, today was about discussing PR and those areas. Perhaps three key points that you feel members and businesses should think about and give consideration to when they are writing and looking to promote their business. So firstly, just take us through quickly what is PR and what are its benefits?
Well, I think PR, public relations, really is the practice of spreading information or sharing information about you or your business that helps to, or your brand, that helps to influence the public perception of who you are and what you do. So it's about controlling and disseminating that information to ensure that the public's perception of you is a positive one and that they think about you in the way that you want them to think about you. In many ways, it's like painting a picture of what you do using information, and that's sharing it via various platforms like traditional media or social media. As a former journalist, I personally think that I look at this in a very simple way. I think PR is about deciding what your story is as a business or as a person, and then trying to tell that story in an interesting way. In terms of the benefits of PR, I think the main thing is that it helps you to shape the conversation about your business or about you or your team, because you want people to be thinking about what you do and the services you provide, perhaps. So it allows you to reach out to an audience, whether that's your customers or your clients or your partners or even the community in general, the broader community, and to provide a narrative that will actually resonate with them, and so that when they think about your business, they think about it in a certain way. PR can be proactive, so it can be about actually making an effort to get that information out there through press releases or through social media, or it can be reactive in terms of dealing with crises that come in, or reacting to news and giving your opinion on it. But I think really a good way of summing up PR is, just as you try to control what goes on inside your business in terms of quality and the values that you instill in your team, PR is about trying to control what goes on outside your business and making sure that people look at your business in a certain way and understand those values and understand the quality or the service or whatever it is that makes you special.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, isn't it? Is sort of taking a step back from your business and looking at what you are doing, whether you're a one-person business, a 20-person business, or a 20,000-person business, and looking at what you do and what really looks positive and is good and what people want to hear. And that sometimes, I suppose, people find that more challenging than others if they haven't got a PR consultant or a sort of an understanding or an interest in the area. So that's really key. So we mentioned about that sort of strategy. How can a business watching this create a PR strategy for the business? What would you suggest they do?
Well, obviously, it goes without saying that professional support always helps. But I think the key thing to do is, as I said, as a former journalist, I look upon it as being all about stories. So you need to ask yourself, what is your story as a business or as a business person? Why do you do what do you do? what you do. Why did you get started in the first place? What are the key values that drive your business? Is it quality? Is it service? Is it innovation? Is it a family thing? Is it about community? What is it that makes you stand out? And what and that helps you start putting together a story and a narrative about what you do, and that narrative will then form the key basis of any PR that you do. So whatever stories you try to put out there, whatever press releases, will always have that key message in about what it is that's special about your business. I think it's really important to understand from the start that PR isn't advertising. It's not about saying our products are best, or this is how much our products cost or our services cost. It's about going beyond that and looking at the brand itself and looking at why people should believe and invest in your business, as opposed to just trying to flog them stuff. You know, that's advertising, and that's why you pay for advertising, whereas PR is about getting coverage and about getting attention. So it's about going beyond that and considering the brand itself in that respect. So that's kind of how you go about creating a PR strategy, is coming up with that story about who you are and what you do and what makes you special.
Yeah, and I think obviously, you know, as a chamber, we work with lots of businesses, and you see businesses that are able to do that and are able to tell that story and actually, you know, tell that across 3, 6, 9, 12, 24 months over a long period of time. And yeah, that's a really important way to look at it. And yeah, whether you're a solicitor or an ash producing seller or whatever else it might be that your story might be, there's a different way, but it's the same principle. So really interesting. That's great. And lastly, Gary, is really how do people share their message? What do you advise to members about sharing that message and how they get it out there?
Well, there's so many ways to share your PR message nowadays. Obviously, the kind of traditional route would have been kind of producing press releases and photographs and getting involved with the local newspaper or whatever news outlets there are out there. And that's still very, very important, because local newspapers, and in particular their kind of adjoined websites, they are very well read, and you know, they have a certain gravitas when it comes to their readership. They've also got very significant social media attached to them as well, you know. So that's still a very, very valid way of getting your message out there. But at the same time, again, it's about remembering that this isn't about advertising. This is about trying to attract the attention of journalists and giving them stories that they think, oh, that's a really interesting story, that goes a bit beyond just saying, this is what I do, this is what I sell. It's about giving them coming up with a story, a community angle, a charity angle, an anniversary, something like that. Things that will actually make journalists think that's worth some coverage. That's got some news substance to it. But beyond that, there's obviously broadcast and TV and radio and things like that, which are very much the same kind of approach. It's about putting together press releases and stories and inviting them to come and see openings and things like that. It's with TV and radio, it's obviously they want a more direct kind of story that's more visual in its literally in terms of TV, they want something that's visual. In terms of radio, I always think that they want a story that's actually visual, because they want their listeners to be able to visualize the story. Yeah, you know, it's not about reading; it's about, you know, getting right to the nub of the story. But then again, of course, there are nowadays social media. Your own social media is a really powerful way to potentially share your story, or to kind of combine with the other things to get some really kind of broad coverage and build a following for yourself. I always think the best way to share your story is through all of those means, and try and come up with
everyone
strategy that goes to the newspapers and then goes to websites and goes to social media and a little bit of video and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So you cover all bases, and you know, the more stuff you put out there, the more eyeballs it gets, and the more your message starts to take root in the community.
Yeah, that sounds great. And of course, using the chamber newsletters and press areas are, of course, a key area.
Always,
of course,
always the most powerful tool in your arm.
Of course. And our last mention for our awards coming up in a few months' time into February as well. So that's wonderful, Gary. Thanks so much. Really, some really interesting nuggets of information there. It's great to have you with us today. And yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you, Gary.
My pleasure. Cheers.